Influence of globalization on operations. This is based on the first part of the textbook, Chapter 2, Influences on Operations Management. All right. Influence of globalization on operations. This is based on the first part of the textbook, Chapter 2, Influences on Operations Management. All right. So the Australian Human Rights Commission, AHRC, recognises the significance of corporate social responsibility, CSR, in business operations. I won't read that quote, but the key point, which it's very important to remember this term, the triple bottom line: economic, social, and environmental. All right, so corporate social responsibility deals with 4 main areas which overlap: ethical responsibility of business and legal compliance of business. And the idea is that businesses are expected to be legally compliant. They have the choice of being ethically responsible or not. And how will these things be seen? They'll be seen in businesses adopting environmentally sustainable practices and socially responsible practices. So I decided to address this by discussing a few case studies. First case study, Airbnb. If you've never heard of Airbnb, I encourage you to pause this now and go and do a little bit of reading about it. So what is Airbnb? Well, it's a business where customers of a business are able to list their properties for use by other people when they are not using them themselves. For example, you might have a spare room in your home which you don't need, so you make it available to someone who needs to stay in that area and they will pay you for it. Alternatively, you might not need your home for a time, or one of your homes if you're that fortunate, and you might allow people to use the entire place for a period of time. I used this business earlier in the year when traveling to a few cities in Europe. It worked really well. On one occasion we used a room in a unit. On the other 2 occasions we used a part of someone's home while we were staying in those cities. So what's that got to do with ethical and legal responsibility? Firstly, this presents a massive challenge to the traditional hotel, motel, accommodation industry. But I want you to consider what potential ethical consequences might come from this business model. How can the people who are using this, the people listing their accommodation, what ethical issues might they be presented with? Secondly, not for the first time, nor for the last time, I want to briefly discuss the issue of outsourcing. It's not illegal to outsource your manufacturing to overseas, nor is it illegal for a business to be using much cheaper foreign labour than Australian labour if they do outsource. The question is, what should be the ethical implications for businesses from countries like Australia who are benefiting from cheap labour in countries such as Bangladesh, where this picture is taken? Think that through, because after all, the whole idea here is how these different influences on operations impact upon business and how management should respond to them. Environmental sustainability. Although businesses continue to aim for profit maximization, and if they are listed on the stock exchange, they are going to always be wanting to increase their share value, otherwise they will really upset their owners. There is a priority in trying to reduce or minimize negative environmental impact. So measures that can be used by businesses include use of renewable energy sources, energy efficiency, recycling, minimizing waste, and something as simple as reducing water consumption. Now, some of those things might actually incur extra costs for the business. Say, for example, a business might be willing to pay extra on its electricity bills, the idea being that the electricity the business uses will come from renewable energy sources. So the business is sacrificing some profit because its costs will be higher. And finally, social responsibilities. So businesses are not only answerable to their owners, other internal stakeholders such as employees and customers, but also to the wider society, especially the community or communities in which they operate. So a business like McDonald's, as you can see here, this image is taken from the 2010 Corporate Responsibility Report. I couldn't find something more recent. And wedged between the top and bottom bun of the burger are some points which I think some of which are relevant. So firstly, nutrition and well-being. So there's a whole issue, but if McDonald's is unhealthy, are they a socially responsible business by selling unhealthy products to the community, especially children? Do they have a sustainable supply chain? That's more relevant to environmental management, environmental sustainability. Employee experience. By giving young people jobs, they are giving those people experience as employees, which, assuming they don't become lifelong McDonald's employees, they'll be able to take into other jobs throughout their career. And the community. McDonald's does promote itself as giving back to the community through things like McHappy Day, Ronald McDonald House, and a sponsorship of community organisations.